Mark Kingston Jones, welcome to the Marketing Study Lab podcast.
Thank you for having me along.
Absolute pleasure. It'll be really interesting, this. I'm looking forward to it. Let's start with a random opener, like I always do. And I think this random opener will make a lot more sense to everyone listening when we get into what you do as a living. But the random opener for you, Mark, is what are the bare necessities of life?
I like this question because it's one that people, when you say bear, you mean B-E-A-R as opposed to B-A-R-E. But yeah, actually, to be honest, bears have quite complicated lives. I was thinking about this answer and I was thinking about, everyone's got this idea of Baloo who's just like coasting through life and chilled out. And actually that doesn't really work for bears in the wild. They have really, the only reason he can coast is because he's learned all these amazing tricks to get by and all these life hacks, but he's obviously had to develop those life hacks first. So cool. Actually the bare necessities of life are mental and physical challenge to kind of keep him engaged and keep him kind of going and get to that point where he can just go, I know what I'm doing now, I'm relaxed.
Brilliant. I love the way you described that then, because straight away my mind just went to, oh God, got to get the shopping, I've got to get down to the supermarket, I need to fill the car with petrol, I need to get the fish, oh, the Cubs are playing up, but it's just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, not that kind of stuff, but yeah, they need life skills.
They do, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why they're actually really difficult to look after in the setting that we work in, because historically places have really struggled with that, because it's like, they just keep them in barren environments and things, and that doesn't work. Bears start having problems and things. So actually for us, I love working with bears because they are a challenge. There's something, they really need a lot to keep them going and keep them busy.
That's cool. I like that. So let's put this into context now, so everyone that's listening knows what we're on about and why are they talking about bears? Like, what's going on here? So, Mark, what's the story that brings you to this stage in your career, and more importantly, what are you doing right now?
So basically, I worked in zoo education for around about 8 years. I actually originally planned to be an animal keeper in the zoo industry, but for various reasons, I decided to start my career as an educator and kind of got stuck there, really, in a good way. And it allowed me to do a whole load of different things that actually people who work with animals day to day don't normally get the chance to do. And one of the big passions of mine is animal welfare, as you might have given away by that really very random start. Yeah, essentially what I tried to do as I was working in zoo education was to actually help the keepers that we were working with every day give their animals the best care possible. And the main way that we try and do that is through something called enrichment. So it's basically a little bit like, it's finding ways of keeping animals mentally and physically challenged in a captive setting. And it's not just zoos we work with sanctuaries and all sorts of different places as well, rescue and rehabilitation, to give them the best possible life, essentially. But the trouble with that is that a lot of people working with animals haven't got any money and they haven't got any time. So around about 9 years ago, I was having a conversation with my boss and we were like, how can we give back to the people and the animals that we're working with every day? I came up with this idea of enrichment workshops. So getting other people basically to spend the time and the money doing the work for us, essentially. And that led us then to sort of the corporate market. And, corporates have money, they have time where they have to go out of the office and do different things and stuff. So we started doing team builds. And we did that for a few years. And then I started working with my business partner, who at the time was a keeper at the same collection. And 6 years ago, the two of us decided to take voluntary redundancy and take the sort of the show on the road with us, basically. And at that point, we were like, we really wanted to do the most we could for the animals we worked with, but we also actually really wanted to do a lot with the people. We realized there was a huge scope to do good enrichment for people as well. And so we really started to dig down into what team building actually was and how we could really, make something that would work well for the animals and the people who were actually helping those animals. And that's led us to where we are now. So we've got 11 collections around the UK that we work with. And obviously not quite right now. Team building, physical team builds aren't quite a thing at the moment, but that's essentially where we're at today.
So you do physical team builds with people to help zoos, sanctuaries, animals. How does that work? Like, just briefly, just describe like a typical day, if you like.
So all the ones we do are different, but the essential ingredients are the same. So a group of people will come in and they'll have a certain amount of time to work together to build an enrichment device for an animal. So that could be, they've got 2 hours and they're going to build something small and, reasonably simple. Or it could be they've got an entire day and they're going to build a big kind of physical structure. It really depends on the team and what they want to do. But at the end of it, they get to see the animals receiving what they've put their blood, sweat and tears into, basically. So they get to see a real outcome to their hard work, and they get to see how they've made a difference to those animals' lives, essentially.
I bet that's so satisfying to see that. And the one thing that I just wanted to point out before we dive into more about team building, why it's important, and your skills and expertise on that, is the fact that you are the perfect example of taking something you're passionate about, taking something that people require or animals require or other businesses require, or solving a problem, but also making money from that as well. But making money that is like the second or third part of that conundrum. And if you said to somebody, okay, you've got animals and you've got team building, go. It's like a lot of people would be, how do I make that connection? Or, I'm into animal welfare, but I want to do something slightly different. How can we link all these points together? I think that's the perfect example of getting everything down and working out where your sweet spot is.
Yeah, no, genuinely, it has taken many years to kind of get to where we are right now, but it's one of those pathways where if you kind of look back over it, it happened very organically, but it has ended up in this beautiful kind of, our ideal is that, all of our stakeholders win. Essentially, that's the aim, and that's always the best workshop, when the people are over the moon, where the animals are clearly enjoying what they've got, and actually the keepers are. We always know we've done a good job when the keepers are standing there taking photos and videos, because if they're getting excited enough to sort of share it with their friends, then it's going to be something that's really going to kind of really kind of fly. So
that's cool, and I'm really loving the fact that you said it took years, or it took a long time to get to this, because I think people have this perception of, well, I'm good at this, that's my passion, and this is how I can make money. Right, let's go, sorted. And it's very, 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 very rare that ever happens. So thanks for adding that part in.
Yeah, we're still kind of slightly waiting for us to get the making money bit. It's building nicely, but the joy of self-employment is it's not going to happen overnight. So that's
absolutely. And it's all the process, isn't it? You can clearly tell that you're passionate about what you do, and it's all about that process.
Definitely, yeah.
Cool, love it. So let's get into a few actionable tips here. So the reason I wanted to chat to you is because I just love the fact that like I said, then you've got this trilogy of your passion, something people want, solving problems, and also making that money or looking to make money in the long term. But the main reason is this team building thing. So we all have this perception of team building where, and I said it in my intro, where, it's like, why won't you come to this Christmas party? Or, what do you mean you don't want to be part of our working book club? And I always call it, and I used to call it in a previous role, forced fun. And companies love to give you forced fun. Come on, do this, it will be fun. Like, no, you can't tell people it's going to be fun. That's down to them to decide. So moving back to team building, what makes a good team building session?
I think, we've obviously talked to a lot of different kind of team building groups over the years, and for me personally, it's got to be memorable, and memorable for the right reasons. Like you say, a lot of people, when they come into these team builds, have just got this idea that they're going to be humiliated and then it's going to be awful, and they just can't wait to get that, get the train or the bus or the car home, late at the end of the day. And if they're really lucky, they might finish an hour earlier than they would do in the office. That's their take home from the day, rather than everything we've just endured.
And any questions at the start? Can we finish early?
Yeah, basically. So no, I think talking to people over the years, I think the main thing is that most team building is completely unmemorable. You do this day, companies invest in it, and and then a week later, a month later, can anyone actually remember what was any different to a normal day, sort of thing? So for me, the main thing is that people look back with fond memories, not that, oh my God, that was the worst day ever and I had to engage with these people and now I'm stuck with them. But they've got a fond memory of something that they did. And those positive memories actually will then trigger all of those team bonding opportunities that they had. So it's kind of that sort of psychology of refreshing, that's something you want to go back to and dwell on, will also bring back all of those other emotions that were engaged in the day. And hopefully, that was a positive team experience. And it was something that people really, I'm having a bit of a Barney with this person over here, but actually, do you remember that time where we got on really well and we worked really well together? And how did we get to that point? Can we reapply it here?
And I think the link that you've done really, really well is the fact that there is an outcome, there is an end goal. But not only that, so you could go on something like an assault course. There's an end goal to that, and there's usually an end goal. But your end goal is functional, and you can see it being used. And I think that, from a mindset point of view, of look how we've changed these animals' lives, we've enriched their lives, we've made their lives better from working together, is a huge thing. Rather than, we've reached this finishing line, brilliant.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we actually, so what we always try and do as well as a follow-up. So, a few months later, we'll take some photos or some videos of how the animals are getting on with whatever they've made. So again, sending that back to the client so that they actually, again, a more physical trigger of, oh yeah, remember that cool thing we did? And I actually, a couple of years ago, we had a really intense team build. It was a full day. It was a really complicated brief. And about 18 months afterwards, the head keeper just sent me some photos and went, oh, I just happened to catch the monkeys, using this thing, if you want to pass them on. And I sent them to the client, and he actually said, we actually still talk about that day, even now. Like, it had been over a year since I'd last spoken to them. And he was like, we still talk about that day and what we achieved, and we're still kind of feeling the benefits. And their key thing was communication. That was our brief on that day, was getting that communication. So to have something so focused and still feel that positive because it was still being talked about is obviously, that for me is perfect. You can't get a better win than that, really.
Love that. Yeah, 18 months. Wow, that's amazing. So in terms of what you do, how do you get people engaged, like before and during, when there might be disconnect in a workforce?
Definitely. I think that's the tricky one, especially, like we've already said, because of this, it's just team building. You tell someone we're going on a team building day, and trying to build the excitement is, you're trying to sweep water uphill kind of thing. It's like, it's a difficult one for us as well, because actually we prefer it when people have no idea what they're coming to do. Okay. Because then it's sort of, you get them walking in as like, oh, we're victims of something horrible that our managers planned for us. So it's a tricky balance, because you don't want to give too much information, because then you start building the anticipation, and it kind of takes away from the actual day a little bit. But also you want to reassure people as much as possible, but people have been burned before. So there is that tricky bit. We actually had a guy once come up to us and say, oh, do you know what? I actually was about 5 minutes away from calling in sick this morning because I did not want to do this. And he's like, I'm so glad I didn't, because I would have been kicking myself if I hadn't turned up to this. But that's how badly, that's how ingrained it is in people's minds that this is going to be awful. So there has to be that reassurance that, we're not going to make an idiot out of you on the day. And, it is actually voluntary. People don't have to get involved, completely. If they don't want to get completely stuck in, they don't have to. Because then what you then find during is that actually people opt in, and because it's their choice, it's a much more powerful, think they're choosing to get involved rather than being told you must engage, you must interact. And actually, so again, from a takeaway kind of team bonding experience, where those people have actually started out a little bit hesitant, and then actually gone, no, actually, do you know what? I am going to do this. I am going to help. I'm going to be part of this team effort, and these are the skills that I can bring in. That's actually much more powerful. And I think the during bit, again, as we've kind of said, is that thing that it's something people, because there is an outcome, and because it actually will only work as a team effort, with our builds and obviously with other team building exercises, if you just get one person who takes control and just starts doing it, it actually won't happen in time. Even if they're the best designer, constructor, whatever, it's impossible to finish within the time. So it has to be a team, and then it really solidifies that actually, yeah, we achieved this as one kind of team, one goal. So I think that's the key to getting the real engagement in there, is that it's a choice, and that it's actually has a meaning making that choice.
That's really interesting, and that kind of brings me on to the next question, which, again, if somebody says team building to you, it's almost, I'm going to stop saying this because it's almost dragging down the interview, but you know, when people say team building and exercises and what you're going to do, you know, it's almost a case of build a bridge with matchsticks, or, you know, cross this river using this plank and whatever. And oh God, do I have to? But how do we design exercises within a team building session that people want to get involved in?
I think so. Well, from our point of view, it's bespoke. So the joy of what we do is, because we work with any animal, all of our planning sessions start with a phone call with the organizer, because a lot of the time when we get the initial brief, it's, oh, we want just a team building day. And that's all the information that you get. So if we just went forward with that, actually, it probably wouldn't work very well. But we have a real, you know, it can be 5 minutes. Sometimes it's been an hour conversation with whoever's organizing it about, you know, why are you organizing it? Is it just something you do every 6 months, every year? You know, what's the team like? What's their background? Do they all work together? Are they all spread all over the country? And this is your one opportunity to bring people together who are talking on the phone all the time, but never actually see each other, and never, you know, again, feel that kind of that real bonding thing. And then we use that information to design something for the animals. So, you know, before that point, we don't generally have, oh, we're going to work with the gorillas, we're going to work with the tigers, we're going to work with the, you know, meerkats or whatever. We like to find out exactly what they want to achieve, and then we can use that to design something that will meet those goals, basically. So again, you know, there's, you know, we're not the only team building company available, and we're not the only people that do that. But again, from talking to different people, that bespoke approach, and that, you know, not just doing a one size fits all, I think is the real key to making sure that, you know, that people are actually getting a return on what it is that they're investing in at this point, kind of thing.
Yeah, make it bespoke, and I think that's absolutely bang on, because every company's different. Every company's differently set up, have their different cultures and that kind of stuff. So it makes sense to make it bespoke. Is there a favorite animal, or you know, when you're speaking to people, do they get a rough choice of what they can do from an animal perspective?
We to be honest, we try and discourage it, because people always go for the big stuff, you know, the impressive stuff. Like, I want to work with a tiger. Well, okay, but tigers sleep for 21 hours a day. So actually, we could build something amazing for a tiger and put it in, and they will not get up until they are ready. And then maybe they'll come and have a look, and then maybe they'll wander off for a bit. And maybe, you know, we did actually do a team build for a tiger once, where it actually took 16 months to get a result from it, which is which is a very extreme, you know, that was way out there. But that's, you know, the thing about scaredy cats is actually, you know, they can be quite nervous of new things, sort of. So we usually encourage people not to, because actually also, again, one of the favorite things is introducing someone to a species they've never heard of before.
That's cool.
We had a group that said we want to work with a majestic species, and you know, you just know, talking to them, in their head they've got, you know, monkey, or, you know, something like elephant or rhino or something, and we ended up we picked a tapir, and it has all the same kind of characteristics as like this big impressive animal, but they were like, what's a tapir? Never heard of this thing. You're like, oh, well, it's got, you know, like a small snout, like a bit like an elephant's trunk, and it's, you know, built like a sort of size of a pig, and, you know, you get this weird image, and then you see it using something you've designed, and it's completely unexpected, and that makes it all the better, I think. So
yeah, that's really cool. We once went on a safari, and yes, we saw the big animals, the ones you'd want to see, and things like that, and it was amazing to see lions out in the wild and that kind of stuff. But like I said, they're pretty boring, really. You know, they sit there, might yawn, get up and have a wander. But one of the ones that stood out for me was a warthog.
Nice. I if I'd have put money on it, I'd have said warthog.
Oh wow, that's cool, because they were just so, I mean, you couldn't get anywhere near them. They'd run away as soon as you got close, but they were just yeah, just seeing them out in the wild and what they did and that kind of stuff is really interesting. Loved it.
No, it is. It's amazing, and there is no comparison to watching animals in the wild. That,
Yeah.
for me, is my favorite thing, and I can't wait to get back to doing some more of that in the future. But it is, yeah, it's kind of it's bringing out some of those amazing things that you might see in the wild and kind of bringing them into this setting where it's in a more controlled setting, but it's giving them those opportunities to express those own behaviors. But yeah, the charismatic animals are actually the ones you least expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. So you alluded to something previously about keeping that connection like long term, particularly when animals might not use something straight away. And you also said that a lot of people might turn up to these kind of days thinking, oh, I just want to go home, I don't want to be here. How do you make sure that the effects that we have on these types of training days are felt like positively, but felt long term?
As I say, I think it is that memorable impact. It's really kind of, again, making sure in the brief that you actually hit, so as I say, for that one that was focused on communication, the design for the animal side from our point of view was something that was going to involve a lot of back and forth working between two separate teams. So not only did they have to communicate within their own teams, but they also then had to also get those ideas and tie them together with the other teams as well. So really kind of making sure that actually we don't just say, oh yes, during the team build you will get a chance to communicate with each other. It's there's got to be something there. And I think for us, one of the things that we really play into is there's always got to be a bit of jeopardy. But it, again, kind of pushing people out of their comfort zones, but not to a point where they're like, okay, I don't want to engage anymore, because there's no harm to it. There's no real there isn't actually really that much jeopardy there to begin with, but it's giving that sense that, okay, this might not work, this might go wrong, we might run out of time. So we really have to focus in, and that kind of heightened emotional, the sort of the episodic memory that is created through that kind of heightened sense of emotion. Again, I think is something that people will then kind of feed back to in the future. And as I say, then from our point of view as well, it's not just once they're done, that's it, they never hear from us again. It's actually coming back to them and saying, look, this is the good stuff that you did, and this is the benefit that it's still having on these animals' lives. This is something that they wouldn't have had without you guys coming in. So that's our key for us, is really, it's corporate social responsibility, but not in a kind of greenwashing way. There's a genuine, you can actually see this is the difference that we made. And actually sometimes when the animals don't react the way that you expect them to, because, a lot of the time a survival strategy for an animal is not to go up to something brand new in its environment in the wild and touch it.
Yeah, sure.
Because that could be, fatal, basically. So actually a lot of animals are quite shy and nervous, and, and so the first time they see something, they might not immediately go over and start, tearing into it or interacting with it, or pulling the food out, kind of thing. And so it's also kind of explaining to the teams, actually that's a really positive thing. That means what you've done has actually had a bigger impact, because if they walked straight up to it and solved it right then and there, then it's probably actually not met the goal that we wanted it to do in the first place. So, and that then allows us to feed back in the future and go, so you didn't see quite what you wanted to see on the day, but actually a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, this is how it's working out.
Yeah, I really like that. It's a shame that you can't get feedback from the animals. Like they can't give reviews. That'd be quite cool. If they could, unfortunately, they can't.
It depends on the animal. We've had some animals that are capable of deconstructing what. Not personally, but I know keepers who put stuff in with orangutans, for example. They'll put it in, and then the night after they'll come back, and there was one orangutan that literally deconstructed the whole thing and lined all the nuts and bolts up outside the enclosure. It was like, you can have this back now. So,
wow.
So some of them give, more cutting feedback than any line manager that you could think of. It's literally
that's brilliant.
Do this again.
Yeah, I love that. No, that isn't good enough. No. That is fantastic. Okay, so let's bring this in-house. This is kind of one of my hang-ups with a lot of industries and a lot of things that companies try to do, because they try to bring something in-house. They try to do it themselves. And, what you do, what you provide, it's a skill. There's an expertise. And I find it similarly within marketing, in that people have this perception that anyone can do marketing because everybody's susceptible to marketing. But what that means is that they can spot an advert or some kind of communication, and that's pretty much their level. You know, they can't tell you the impact or why it's been created, or the lead up to it and all those kind of things. It's just literally the visual, and everyone's got an opinion, which is, not great. But if companies decide to take something in-house and do team building in-house, what are the issues there, and what are they going to do wrong, basically?
So actually, I'm actually not against this, especially if you've got a well-balanced, high-performing team anyway.
Okay.
Then actually doing those kind of things in-house can be really beneficial, just to kind of keep things, ticking over. I think the issue can come when you think you've got a high-performing team, or it's very obvious you don't have a high-performing team. And then, because also if you're working it in-house and whoever's running it, whether that's the direct line manager or the HR or learning and development or whoever it is that's running it, there's probably a history there. There's probably preconceptions. There's baggage being carried by, one side or the other. It might not actually be a space where they feel safe. The participant might not actually feel safe to be honest and to get fully involved, because they're very aware they're being watched. So actually it could cause more problems, because actually it almost entrenches that kind of feeling of isolation even more. Even, a lot, I talk to people about team building and they're like, oh, we just go down the pub. That's our team building, and it's great. Friday afternoon, we're in there sinking some beers, and everyone's super happy. But that might be again, in a high performing team, that everyone's friends and everyone's getting on really well. That could be absolutely true. But if you've got, even one kind of introverted individual in that team who's watching everybody else sinking pints and having fun and feeling like, actually, I'm kind of sat here and I'm trying to be involved, but I'm feeling a bit awkward and I don't feel part of this, then actually what you're doing is making that divide worse and worse. So the great thing I think about taking it outside is, really what we are is facilitators. We're not actually giving anybody any more skills or any more, we're not doing direct training like this is how you should change your mindset. All we're doing is providing something where everyone's out of their comfort zone. Everyone's in this, foreign situation where, there isn't any of that preconceived baggage, and we're mixing people up and allowing them to develop what's already there, but under a very different circumstance. But it's then transferable when you go back to the office, when you go back to that kind of, then you can reapply that. You can think, oh, well, actually, me and that person, we don't really gel normally, but actually on this occasion, we worked together and we achieved this thing. So maybe we can actually do that now that we're back in the office, kind of thing. So yeah, for me, actually, the best team builds is literally where we set them up, we get them going, and we step back. The more we interfere, the more we mess with the dynamics that are there, and reforming or being created, kind of thing. So obviously we've got to keep an eye on health and safety if people are using drills and saws and stuff. And sometimes the stuff that we are building is a bit more complicated, and if people aren't as sure, then obviously we'll give a helping hand. But that's actually sometimes the nicest moment, because you get some mentoring going on. If you get someone who is a bit more confident and they can see someone struggling, if they take that opportunity to go, oh, I can show you, I can, give you some tips and stuff. And then that's a beautiful way to see those relationships being, formed or reformed in a completely, outside of the normal day-to-day working. So
it also breaks down those walls as well that we put up in terms of titles and what you're perceived to do for your job and things like that. And I suppose it's a really good leveler, although there'll be different skills that people bring to it. It's a really good leveler because you're removing that element of it, yet you're still trying to solve a problem with an end goal.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think a lot of people assume that, most of the people that take part in our team builds are kind of like, blokes who are really confident using drills and saws and stuff. But actually that's not in any way the case. The vast majority of the people who take part are ladies, I would say between about 30 and 50. And a lot of them start the workshop by saying, I've never used a drill before in my life. There's obviously exceptions to that, but that's the way a lot of them tend to start. And yeah, it is a perfect leveler, because the people who are more confident aren't necessarily the managers and stuff, and even we've had, CEOs working in, amongst the kind of the floor staff and stuff. And everybody is, everybody's trying to work towards the same thing. Everybody's out of their comfort zone, even a proficient DIY expert is building something for an animal that, you know, they may not have heard of before. So
Mm.
they've got that idea of, oh, I'm feeling confident, but actually I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the animal. So it almost knocks that confidence down a bit, which is a really good way of everybody's on the same, you know, level playing field kind of thing. So
yeah, and I suppose from that point of view, you must get certain questions or people being inquisitive about the animal and how it might react, and I hadn't thought of that before, but kind of if you're doing something for, say, a tiger, it's like, can its paw do that? Can it leap here? Can it grab this?
Mm.
And I suppose there's some element of the majority of people you work with will not know that level of an animal and what it can do and its ability.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a really, I mean, we don't kind of force the education side down people's throats because it's not necessarily what they're coming for. But no, yeah, we always end up having a lot of kind of one-on-one chats with people. And we always, again, when we introduce, we always tell people, you know, there is a reason behind we're doing this. This is the behavior that we're trying to get and stuff. But yeah, then that leads on to some really nice, again, organic kind of natural conversations where people just kind of, you know, learn a bit more about the animal. And then again, when they then get to see it, you know, again, you get some nice moments there when, especially if we have managed to work out this is how the animal's going to react and we get it right, then the people are like, oh, you said that was going to happen. Wow, you know it, you know, you're an expert. And it's like, well, actually, you know, it could have gone either way, but yes, you were right on this occasion, sort of thing. So, but no, it's a really nice way. And even actually having difficult conversations, because, you know, not everybody is a fan of zoos and things. And and actually some of the best real good chats that we've had with people who were like, oh, actually I was a bit uncomfortable coming here today because I'm not a big fan, but this is a window into the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that most people don't get a chance to see about how animals are being taken care of. So again, it's another opportunity to have that kind of conversation and stuff. So no, I love it. I think, you know, I've very much missed it, seeing as the last one we did was in March. It's
I can imagine. Just on that, so what's been the score there? How have you managed these last few months? What have you been doing?
Yeah, with difficulty. No, so I'm kind of lucky in the fact that when I left to go self-employed, I also work for a charity, and we do training for keepers and students who want to work with animals. So I've managed to pick up some online teaching and stuff and kind of fill gaps. But we did manage to pivot, which initially at the beginning of lockdown, I thought there's no way. We've got such a physical team building exercise, there's no way. But we did manage to come up with a virtual offering. And also more recently, we've actually just launched, we were very lucky. We had some people who gave us some money basically for materials to build some stuff once lockdown started to ease slightly. So we actually went to a monkey sanctuary and we built some stuff for monkeys. And one of the ladies was like, that was the best feeling, watching you build stuff with, you know, what we'd given you. You should set up a subscription model. So we did. So we've just literally about a month ago launched that, which is actually growing really nicely. So
brilliant.
Because at the moment we're not going to be able to get back to doing the actual team builds until October. Obviously, fingers crossed, all being well.
Absolutely.
So this is actually a really good way of what we're using the subscription model for is to actually develop ideas that we couldn't do for team builds because they're too risky. But actually, by the time October comes around, we'll have tested the devices out, we'll have worked out, you know, how to then essentially put them into our team builds, so our team building groups can then spread them around the UK with all lots of different animals and stuff. So
that's cool.
It's to be honest, it's been what's keeping me sane the last couple of months. So I'm very grateful.
But it just highlights that there's always opportunities, there's always ways, regardless of the industry. Because if you think about your industry, and like you said, it is physical, it is that interaction and all those types of things. Like, how the hell are you going to get anything going in this environment when you cannot dictate the change in the environment that's happened? But there's always ways, there's always opportunities. It's just sometimes it takes these types of things for you to get to that stage because you've got no choice.
Yeah, no, one of my LinkedIn connections was like, you know, desperation is the kind of the not desperation, but necessity is the mother of invention, if that's the phrase, isn't it? I think, but
Something
yeah,
like
it's
that,
true. The two things that have come out of lockdown are things that we would never have developed actually without those restrictions. We'd have quite happily carried on doing the team builds and been in blissful ignorance that these opportunities even existed. But yeah, I'd kind of rather we hadn't had to go down this route to come up
Yeah.
with them. But actually, yeah, now that we've got them, I'm really excited to see where they'll both lead. So
Brilliant. Okay, Mark, are you ready for some quick fire questions to finish up?
I will do my best.
Okay, here we go. What's that one source of information you can't live without?
So there's this website called Animal Diversity Web, which is probably not the answer that most people would give on a business podcast. But actually, for me, for doing my job, I need constant inspiration about amazing animals, and it's a really good resource, easy thing to access. So that's what I can't live without.
I like that. What's the last thing you remember Googling?
So this morning I Googled what time is it in Singapore,
Okay.
because we're actually doing some training for keepers at the Wildlife Reserve Singapore at the moment. We're doing it online. We're supposed to be going there in September, but obviously we're not now. So I was trying to work out teaching with time differences, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you could tell your 10-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
It was a difficult age, so I think I would stick with things will get better.
Cool. What's the most important thing to know about marketing right now?
It definitely needs to happen throughout lockdown.
Boom. Yes. Brilliant. Perfect answer. And final most important question. If people want to find out more about you, what you do, what you provide, what you offer, where should they go?
So lockdown has provided my business partner with a lot of opportunity to work on our website. So our website has gone through a huge overhaul, and there's lots of information on there. But also LinkedIn. I love building up my network on there. And if people enjoy animal photos, animal videos, and a bit of a lighter side of kind of business, then definitely connect with me on there. And obviously we have our new subscription as well. If people want to get involved, if they like the sound of what they've heard and want to get that feel good factor of helping animals out, then we would love to get more followers, because the more followers we can get on there, then the more we can achieve for animals.
Cool. And what's the website? What's the web address?
teambuildingwithbite.com.
Superb. Easy to remember. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. Absolute pleasure to have you on today.
No, thank you so much. It's been wonderful.